The will of God. If any man will do his will, he shall know. Will means conscious ability to determine. The will is never creative, but directive. It is man's power to decide and execute. To the Israelites, Joshua said, "Choose this day whom you shall serve." Man's will is his power to choose between different ideas. God's will is the self-pronouncement of that which is, that which was, and that which always shall be, the same yesterday, today, and forever. God does not have to will things into being, and to suppose that he does is to assume that there is some other power opposed to God. Which of you, asks Jesus, by taking thought can add 1 cubit to his stature? Could the human will make us anything that we are not? Is it possible to get anything out of a bag which the bag does not contain? The worlds are framed by the Word of God. The divine will is absolute. It is a divine announcement of that which is and ought to be as a natural expression of our lives. God's will is good. It is the best that any man can conceive for himself or others. How, then, can we will to do his will? By knowing and having no other. Thy will, not mine, be done means that we acknowledge no will of our own. The government shall be upon his shoulder. We talk much about Christ's government, but it remains ever a fact that until we surrender our human wills to his divine will, he cannot assume the government and the direction of our lives and lead us into path of pleasantness and peace. God reveals himself, not through the human will, but through feeling and realization and knowing. The will is good as the law enforcement agency, but beyond that, it is ineffective. As indicated on our chart, the will is nothing more than a vice which holds our word in place until, having formed itself in us, it is ready to be released with power. The only purpose of the will is to keep law and order in our mind. When we pass into grace, the will is no longer necessary to us. My grace is sufficient for thee. We shall then be above the law and not subject to it. The simplest way to integrate the human will with the divine will is to refuse to will the will of personality. Every time the human will asserts itself, immediately surrender to God, saying as you do this, "My will is to will the divine will." We must say it over and over until the two minds vibrate in perfect harmony to it. Then, the land thou seest, to thee I will give it. By faithful repetition of this statement, we shall eventually cause the subconscious mind to believe that we have no other will but God's will, and to know that we will permit no other power to function in our lives. Realization or feeling alone is creative. The will, as Judge Troward states, is simply a tool which holds the word and the feeling in place until the Spirit has formed itself in us. We can hold the word until it accomplishes its objective, but we cannot will to create anything by it. That is the thing we must always remember in treatment. Then we shall be able to speak our word and let it go. As we stay the mind upon the word through the power of the will, God works and operates upon it. The functions of the will were stated in the Master's words, "If ye abide in me, if you continue in my word." St. James stressed doing above everything else. Be ye doers of the word and not hearers only. And according to Jesus, doing the divine will was the essential action in spiritual practice. The doer, Jesus likened to a man who built his house upon a rock, spiritual understanding. The hearer only, he likened to a man who built his house upon the sand, or thought process. Most of the metaphysical world today is building its spiritual house upon the sands of thought processes, and having no sure foundation in truth, it is quickly swept away. Without spiritual understanding and realization, the truth cannot grow into our consciousness and experience. If a man will do his will, he shall know. God will assert himself in every mind and will which is wholly surrendered to him. Human intervention, on the other hand, will only delay the operation of divine law. He who is seeking to do the will of God must will to will the divine will in every department of his life. Only then can he enter into the glorious state of no responsibility and shift human responsibility to divine government. In all thy ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct thy path. The one thing we have to guard against in all this work is the action of human thought after the treatment has been given. The perfect outcome of the prayer depends entirely upon absolute trust. Take no thought about the word after it has been released, for to do so is to take the problem back into our own hands. I have planted, Apollos watered, but God gave the increase. Just remember that when the word is spoken, the problem is in God's hand. You have nothing more to do about it, and you must not think about it. The bee that makes the honey also makes the honeycomb to hold the honey. The God who made us not only gave us the substance to keep us alive, happy, prosperous, and well, but also gave us his mind and his will by which we could be aware of it and use it. When King David said, "I have not seen the righteous forsaken," he testified to an experience that many people would be inclined to question. Righteousness, be it remembered, is not merely a matter of conduct. It includes right thinking. The person who is thinking right will not entertain negative thoughts. Therefore, the thoughts of starvation or lack find no place in his consciousness. Knowing that all is mind, we have but to call on mind through the Word to express itself in the manner needed. God is the author of all right ideas, but man is the medium through which divine ideas are expressed, and God cannot exist without expression. Our security lies not in human provision, but in our essential unity with God, in whom we live, move, and have our being.